Hello, you're welcome back to today's class. This is the third section of our class, and today we are going to be learning Introduction to CSS. Now, what is CSS? Well, CSS is the language we use to style a web page. What is CSS? Well, CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet. So, Cascading Style Sheet is a style sheet language used for specifying the presentation and styling of a document written in a markup language such as HTML or XML. So, CSS is the language used to style a web page. And if you recall from our first class, referring to the house analogy, CSS is like the painting, the tiles that adds beauty to the website. So in today's class, we are going to learn how three ways or three methods of adding CSS to our HTML page or website. Now the first one is the inline CSS. The second one is the internal CSS. The third one is the external CSS. Now, the inline CSS does not require selector, whereas both the internal and the external CSS require selectors. And in a moment, we are going to learn why that is so. But are there any advantages of using either of these CSS selectors? Can I just use any one that I please? Well, there are some advantages and disadvantages. Now, one of the advantage of the inline CSS is that the web browser, when applying CSS, gives it more respect than the internal CSS and the external CSS. And why is that so? Now, this word CSS means Cascading Style Sheet, as we have seen. Now, it means that it will start from the outermost CSS and scale down to the innermost CSS. That being the case, because inline CSS is very close to a tag, it is the one that will take priority over this. So this is why this is one of the advantages. Now, one disadvantage of the inline CSS is that it takes time to write, and another disadvantage is that it takes time to update. So for a big project like this, if you use an inline CSS to do the first work, what about when you want to update something? It can be very hard to find it. So that's one of the disadvantages. Another disadvantage is that it makes your HTML page very, very big. And when a web page is very, very big or large, it slows down how fast the page loads. So you want your HTML to be as small as possible so that it can load fast. Now, the internal CSS lives within the HTML page, just like the inline CSS, but only that it is usually within the head tag. Then, using selectors, it will now inform the browser where it will apply the CSS rules, and I'll demonstrate that this in a moment. Then the external CSS, like the name suggests, it is a CSS that is external to the HTML page. Therefore, for the web browser to know which of the external CSS to apply, it must be linked to the HTML page or document where you want to apply it. Now, one of the advantage of the internal CSS is that it can be easier for you to maintain when used for a large project like this. So that is one of the advantage. And one of the disadvantages is that just like the inline CSS, it can also make the file size of the HTML big or large. Now, a common disadvantage of both the inline and the internal CSS is that they cannot be shared. So any CSS you write here cannot be shared by other pages. You have to manually copy them and paste before it will work. But here comes the advantage of the external CSS. It is external to the page, and so it can be shared by any other page where you want to use that CSS. So with the external CSS, the file size of the HTML remains the same. In fact, it is very, very small, and it can be shared by other pages. Now, one disadvantage of this is that any CSS you write with your external CSS method, it can be overridden by the inline and the internal CSS. So because of the many advantages of the external CSS, it's recommended that when you want to use the external CSS, then avoid using any of this. Now, if you must, use them sparingly. So what are CSS selectors? Well, CSS selectors are used to tell the browser where the CSS should be applied. And why is that so? Because the CSS is not written where it will be applied. Now, let's open our VS Code and let's understand these things that I've just explained. So I'll minimize. I'm going to create a new folder, and I'll call this CSS Basics. Then next, I'm going to open with VS Code. So just a moment. So our page is opened. So I'll cross this off. Then I'm going to create my index.html. So just a moment. Okay. So it's back. Then next, we need to bring out our HTML template, and we are going to leave it there. The next, I want to write a h1 tag. Say welcome. So if I want to apply an inline CSS, first of all, let me view this on my live server. So this is how it looks like. The next, if I have a paragraph, sorry, 30 or Z to break. So if I want to apply the inline CSS, I'll use my style attribute. Then it's a color, and this is navy. So this will apply a navy color to my h1. Now, if I have a h2 tag now, true. The tag. Now, what if I now want my h1 and my h2 to have the same styling? So this is again one of the disadvantages. That means I have to copy this and paste. So you see the stress. So only them will have the same color. So this is not recommended, so I'll just leave it. And now the internal CSS requires a style tag within the head tag. So how do I inform or tell my browser where I want to select within this body tag? So this is why the internal and the external CSS, they use selectors, because the CSS is not written where it will be applied. So we use the selectors. So there are some types of selector that we can use to tell the CSS where and where we want to apply our CSS. And let me just go over there in a moment. We have the universal selector, which is this. We have the type selector, which is the tag name. We have the class selector, which is referenced by dot. We have the ID selector by the pound sign. Attribute selector, the list selector, the descendant continuator, the pseudo class, and the pseudo elements. This is just some of the most important. Now, let's use the basic one, the universal selector. Now, what does the universal selector do? Now, like the name universal, if I go back to my document, I have my body tag, I have my H1 tag, I have my P tag. So any tag within this our HTML, once you use the universal selector, it means select all the tags. So you're not specific. So I'll demo that in a moment. One of the use cases of the universal selector is to reset some of the default styling that your browser injects into your web page if there is no CSS provided. For example, you can see that there is a margin here, or it can also be a padding, but there's a space. Now we did not add this space, but it was our browser that added the space by default, and so is this, and so is this. So if you want to remove this space, which is okay for now, but when you are dealing with a complex project, this might be troublesome for you. So to remove that, we use the universal selector. Then we now say we don't want any padding at all. By default, it should be 0. So if there is any padding here to be done away with, I see, I don't think there was padding there. So we use, let's say, remove all the margin, 0. So you see that all the margin has been removed. Then the next other preset is box sizing, border box. Now this is used, this one, this CSS rule here mostly apply when you are adding border to a web page. It just instructed that the size of the border should not increase the width of the tag that you might have set. So this is how we apply our internal CSS. Now this left hand side before this column is the CSS property, while this other side after the column is the CSS or the properties value. So we are using the CSS we are using the padding property, and we are giving it a value of 0. We are using the margin property, and we are giving the value of 0. Now if you want to add more than one, this property and value, if you join them into one, you can call them a style rule. Then when they are more than one style rules, they are now called style rules. So this is what you need to keep in mind. So you notice that we use this universal selector to select all our tags, and like I demonstrated in my last video, if I give this a border, of 1 pixels solid green, you notice that all my tags will have what this border of green. Next, we'll now move. So I want to comment that out. So next, we now move to the type selector, and this type selector, you select it using the tag name. So for any valid tag that exists in your body tag, you are now going to tell it select all those tags. Now you record that later. I ask a question: what if I want this? If I want the color of this H1 to be applied to this H2, you see that I have to copy and paste. But when you're using the internal or external CSS, write only one set of CSS rules, and it will apply to as many tags as exists in your body tag, or as many reference you give to the tag, and we'll discuss that soon. So I want to select all my P tags, and I want to reduce the font size to 0, maybe to 10 pixel. So if I do that, you see that all my P tags have a color of 10 pixel now. And next, if I want to give it a color gray, so you notice that they have the color of gray. So as many P tags that exist in my body tag, they are going to have this color. Now there are some cases where you don't want all your tags that you use in your web page to have the same styling. You just want them to stand out, or you want to manually tell it where it should be applied. So that is where you now use the next type of selector, which is the class selector. But now that we have seen how to apply the internal CSS, I just wanted to point out that there is a structure of CSS selectors. First, you have to type the selector type, which can be any of these. So in this, our internal style sheet here, the internal style sheet here, the selector type is what is the star or the universal selector. Then inside here we have the CSS rules, which can be a color or a font size. So this is the structure. You cannot write internal or external CSS without providing the selector type. And if you notice, if I remove the selector type now, you see it throws an error. So don't make that mistake, please. So I want to have a list. Okay, now what if I want to give this P tag a border? Now if you notice, if I add a border here, a border type solid red 2 pixel, and just to point out, when you are using this border, the order does not matter. So it must not be arranged like this. So if I save that time, there is no 1 pixel, there's no size. So you see that it applied the border to all the P tags that exist now. But what if I want it to be applied only here? Should I use internal CSS? No. I mean, should I use the inline CSS? No. I have to use a different type of selector. So I will use the class selector. So I will say dot red border, or just to keep it simple, red. Then I'm going to bring this here. So where do I want it to apply this? Now, this red that is here is the value of a class, while this dot is just a convention in CSS that used to reference that particular class. I repeat again, this red here is the value of a class. Then this dot here is just a reference that you used to tell the environment that this is a class and not an ID. And I'll demo this soon. So I want to go to the last P. Now say class red. Now this is the attribute and this is the value. Now how do I tell you that? Look for only a class that have a value of red. So that is why I need this reference here. So if I save now, you'll notice that it belongs to this. Next, we'll use the ID on. Now the ID on will reference it by this pound sign. So I'll see give the same name, but this time I'm going to change the border color. So let me use blue. Let me use pop. Now, it's not an issue if they have the same value, but what will be an issue is if they have the same reference. Now, it's like a first name and a surname. So even though we bear the same first name, our surname might be different. So where do I want to apply this CSS style rule? I would say ID. Then I would put red. Now you see it is only applied here. Now a question now comes. Now I want to do something again. So let me do a H3. A Sean. So a P tag and Lauren. Now, what if I want this my H3 or this my paragraph here to have the same color or the same or the same border color that is here, where for a class that is not an issue. I can easily add class and I'll say red, and if you do this it is professionally okay. But what if I change this to an ID where it's still going to work but it's not professionally acceptable? Now an ID value should be unique to one HTML page. It should not appear more than one. So if I want to use an ID of value red, then it should be in another page, like about another page. So ID should be unique, whereas class can be shared by as many tags as possible. So this one will be class. So if I must use another ID, it should be with another value. For example, let's say I want this to have a different color. So I can come here and say an ID of H3. Then I will say the color should be brown and the text decoration should be underlined. So if let me check if I've referenced it. No, so I have to reference it. So ID H3. So if I save this now, you see how it looks. So because the value is not the same with this ID here, it is professional, it is acceptable, but the same value being shared with another tag is not acceptable. So that is just the difference between a class and an ID. Now, just to explain something else, the way you arrange your CSS rule might determine how it will be applied, or the one that will take precedence. For example, if I come here and I apply, and let's say all my H3, I give it a color of, let me say, blue violet. Let's see if it will apply. No. Now, why isn't it, or why did it not apply? This is because an ID value should be unique to a page. So CSS ignores this here, even though it is below. But if I remove this reference here, you see that it's still the same H3 and H3. So this one will be applied first and later be updated by this. So the output now be this. So the ID has more respect. The CSS, the browser or the in-browser or CSS respects an ID more than any other selector. So that is for that. Next, we move to the attribute selector. Now the attribute selector looks like this. Now I want to do something. So if I come here and add a title attribute, say vision statement. So each time I hover this, where did I put it? So each time I hover, you see this vision statement. So let's assume that I want to use this attribute to select this tag. So let's do that. So remember, it is double brackets. Then I'll say title equal to, I will now put vision statement. So exactly what is here, just copy it. Then I'll say the background color should be dark cyan. So if I save this, let me refresh. Title equals to, okay, my spelling is wrong. So see, it has been applied. So if I change the color here to white, color to white, so you notice that that's been selected. Now I use the attribute selector to do this. So you can use this attribute selector to select any tag that have or that has an attribute. So you can also use it to select this, but which is shorter to write? I think it's this one. So next we move to the selector list, and an example is like this. Now this selector list is used when you know that one or two tags or one or two IDs, you want to give them the same CSS styling. So I will demo this now. So let's say I want all my p tags and all my let me look at the output again. Okay, let's say I want all my p tags and all my h2 and h1 to have a font size of 10 pixels. Let me use something that's significant. So now you notice now that it has reduced. So this one, so if I didn't use this selector list, that means I have to manually apply this to all of them. So this is just a shortcut to apply more than one CSS style rule to as many selectors as possible. So that is for that. So I'll just increase the font size to 15 so that it will be bold. Okay, so that is for that. Then next we move to the descendant selector. Now descendant selector, as you can see from here, it is after the first selector you give a space, then the next selector. So this one here is like a parent, then this one is like the first child or a child inside. So you're not telling it to look for this parent, then if this child exists, then you apply the CSS style to it. So let's see how this works. So I'll scroll down. I'll say this is a div of blog. So I have my h2, how to understand CSS. So the first paragraph, lorem. So let me do another one. Lorem. Then next, let me have a link tab. For now, it's going nowhere. Tab. So read. So if I have something like this, so if I view this to look like this, and I have to understand. Sorry if I spelling is wrong. CSS. Now, if you take a look at this, I have a link tag here. So let's assume I have another link tag above inside the navbar. So be nav, just a nav dot and / index tab is equals to my home. Then do this. So this go to my blog. So if I use the tag selector, the tag name or the tag name selector type, I say I say text decoration should be none. You're going to notice that all not text align, text decoration should be none. So you're going to notice that all my blogs will look like this. What if I only want it to be applied to this and not this? So what I'm going to do now, you notice that here we have a class of blog. So I'll instruct it now, say dot blog space. So it's only going to apply this text decoration to any link tag that is inside the blog div or the blog container. So if I save this, see that it's gone. Let me add more things. So I'll say the background color, let's say outline 1 pixel solid gray, then padding should be 0.5 rpm 1. So if I do this now, this is how it looks like. Then next, so this is how it looks like, and it's shown like this because this is not a block tag. So, but you understand what you are doing because this block tag, because this anchor tag, sorry, because we place this parent selector type before this anchor tag, that is why it is not being applied to all the anchor tags that we have here. So that's it. So I can just clean this up. Okay, the next we move to the pseudo class selector. The pseudo class selector, one of the example of the pseudo class selector is hover, but there are many of them, and I'll show you soon. So on your own, you can use the WC School to practice them. So now I'll say blog. So now, so all the anchor tag inside my nav, if I hover over them, so if you notice when I notice from here, so you have all of this. sudo class selector, so hover, then we'll now add text. Decoration should be none. Now this hover is like a conditional styling. So unlike this other CSS that we have been applying, once we refresh the page or go back to the web page, we are going to see that it has been applied if we did the right thing. But in the sudo, in this hover selector, it's only when we hover that element that this CSS will be applied. So in this sudo class selector, it's only when we hover that it will be applied. So if you notice, the text decorations are still there, but if I hover, you see it's out. I hover, it's out. Hover, it's out. Hover, it's out. So this is how it looks like. It's like a conditional if. It's like an if statement. Only when there's a hover, then apply this, or as many CSS views that you have. If there's no hover, remove it or don't apply. So next we go to the sudo element selector, and why the sudo class selector has a single colon after the selector type, the sudo element selector has double colon after the selector type. So if I say all my p tags, their first letter should be of font size 30 pixel, and the color should be black, which is already black already. So if I save this now, you notice that all the first letter in this page will look like this. So it's simple. That is how we use the sudo class selector. So with this now, we have known how to select using the CSS selectors. And these CSS selectors, like I explained earlier, it applies to the internal and the external CSS. So let's now learn how to apply the external CSS. So what I will do is I will cut everything that is here out. Control X. So you see it's out. Now if I go back, my browser looks like this. Now if we got it right, by the time we apply the external CSS, those styling should be back. So I'll come back here, I'll create a folder called CSS. Then inside it, I'll create one called index.css. So I'll hit enter. So inside it, I want to paste. Now if I save, am I going to see the CSS applied? No. And why is that the case? Remember earlier I explained that because the external CSS is external to the HTML file, you need to somehow reference it or link it or inform me that this is the CSS that I have. Please use it for my page. So that is what we are going to do. And to do that, we use the link tag inside the body tag. So this one is external CSS. This has been a mistake, all this one. So this should go inside the head tag. So I have this link dot and forward slash inside my CSS, inside my index.css. So if I go by it again, remember we are using VS Code, so just type the name of the tag, enter, to bring out all this for you. Then next, dot and forward slash means open in the current folder where this index.html is, and which is in the root folder. So we have two things inside there, CSS and the index.html. So we know that our CSS is inside the CSS folder. So we'll go there and select this. So if we save now, all those CSS should be back. So this is how we apply the external CSS. As we move on in this course, it is the external CSS that we are going to use. So next, I want to move to what is specificity. Now, specificity is the algorithm used by browsers to determine the CSS declaration that is the most relevant to an element, which in turn determines the property value to apply to the element. The specificity algorithm calculates the weight of a CSS selector to determine which rule from competing CSS declaration gets applied to an element. Now we've done this before. You remember that when I did this, okay, I removed this here and I added, and it was just H2 and H3. You recall that it was this one that was applied. Now, when I added this one, because the ID has more points, now the same CSS, there's a conflict now. The same CSS rule wants to be applied to the same tag. So now the question that CSS will ask now, which one should I apply? Which one should I obey? So it's going to take the one that has a higher specificity. To pronounce this name is stupid, just for me. So the one that has the high specificity. So, or the one that has the highest point. So just to understand this, you just need to make some assumption. For CSS type, assume that inline has 100 points, internal CSS has 50 points, and external has 10 points. So if there's a conflict, so if I say in my inline tag, a paragraph tag should have a color of blue. In my internal, I say it should have a color of green, and in my external, I say it should have a color of red. Which one will be applied? Now, when there is that conflict, the CSS will now use the points or the weight to now determine which one to apply. So this will go. Then for CSS selectors, I assume that ID has 100 points, class has 20 points, tag name has 10 points, and universal selector has 1 point. So that is why, because the ID selector here has 100 points and the
the tag name type has how many points did I say? It has 10 points. So you see 10 and 100, the difference is very clear. So that means this one will win. Now, that is on the surface specificity. But now, let's now see another scenario. What if I have the same tag of the same selector type? So I want to use an example now. So let me explain that. So let me come here. I'll say dot parent. I have page 4. Here I have a p tag Celorim. Here I have a h dot child. So I'll just copy the same thing. Shift Alt arrow down. Then move down one step. So now you see that the same CSS rule. I have the parent and I have the child. So let's see the output. Now you see this. So this is I'm the parent and this one means I'm the child. So what if I give this, if I say dot the parent tag and p, you see that it will be applied to all of them. Now what if and I want to change this other one that is here? How do I get more points? So I will explain that in a moment. So let me show you. So I will save this and I'm going to say dot parent space my p. I'll say the color should be green. So you notice that all my p tags here will be green. Now you notice that even if I move this guy up as the first item here, you notice that it will still have the same output. Now why did this one not have the same output? Because this one here is more specific. Now remember that a class has how many points? It has what? 10 points. It has 20 points. The one tag name has like 10. So this one already has 30 points. Whereas this one here just has only what? 10 points. So even though this one comes after this CSS apply the one that has the high point. So this is where the specificity lies. So that means to increase specificity, select using the descendant selector, and that is what we've done here. So one of the advantages of using this specificity is that you can, when you're building a complex web application, you might run out of CSS names. So you can, for the same child, for different parents, you can have the same child class or tag, and their CSS will not conflict as long as they have different parents, because it means it has a higher point. So that is for that. Now we'll move to another topic, which is how to use the following, which is one thing about the padding, the margin, the border radius, the box shadow, the text transform, the text align, the background image, the font family, and lastly, we'll now conclude with CSS position and Z index. So I believe before the next 30 minutes, we are going to finish this. So let's now begin. CSS padding. Now, a simple way to explain the difference between CSS padding and margin is you right click, you go to your inspect. So I want to drag this up. Layout. Okay, completed. Now you have this. You have the diagram here. Now this enormous diagram now is a tag. Then the padding is the space within the tag. Or rather, this one here is just the text or the image or whatever is inside the tag. Then why the padding is the space within that tag, then you can have the border. Then the margin now is not the space outside the tag. So just know that padding is the space within the tag, and margin is the space outside the tag. So let's apply this. So if you notice now, there is a small space between all the H. Let me see, I think this is a H3. So all the H3 tags, so there's a small space. So what I can do now is to come down here and say the H3, I want to give them a padding of 20 pixels. Now if I do this, this will add a uniform padding all around. Now what if I just want to add a padding left? So I can say padding left, and that will add just for the left. So you see that the top and bottom, they are left. So just to explain more, if I say padding, and this also apply to border, I mean this also apply to margin, the first value you put here, so if I put 1 pixel, it applies to the top. So this is top, it moves clockwise, right, bottom, left. The next, if I have a single value, so if I have a single value as we had before, means all corners So if I just have a single value, means apply the same to all the corners. Then if I have two values, means my top and bottom. The one here refers to my left and what? Right. So this, but if you want to be more specific, there is padding top, right, bottom and left, and there's margin top, right, bottom and left. So that's what we use here. So next, if I just want, so let me not do the margin. So the margin, I want it, the top and bottom should be 1 RPM, then the left and right should be 2 RPM. So if I save, see how it looks like now. So to give this a better view, if I give it a border 1 pixel solid crimson, so you notice that this is the actual size of the border, I mean of the tag, and this is the margin. So the top and bottom is 1 RPM and the left and right is 2 RPM. So that is margin and padding. So the next is the text transform. Now the text transform can be used to transform the way a text displays. So if I say text transform should be lower, text transform should be lowercase, so it will force all the text to be in lowercase. If I put capitalized, so to make each word start with a capital letter. If I say uppercase, so this is it. Then if I want it to go to the center, so say text align, that is the center, so it will move to the center. So the next one I want to learn is the background image. Now the background image is used to add an image to a web page without using the image tag. And let me demo that for a moment. So I'll come here, save this as gallery. Then I'll say, let me just use this for now. So I'll come here, I'll create a new folder called images, or img for short. Then I'm going to look for an image. Let me just go to my pictures. Look for one of this image. Just drag it. And put inside. So now I have an image. Okay. So let's say I want to add this image now only on this container. Yeah, so I'll come here, say dot gallery, and I say background image URL, enter, in quotes, dot and forward slash. So it dot and forward slash. So dot and forward slash means open in the same directory where the current file is, and this current file is just inside CSS, and there's only index.css there. So I have to So go back, dot and forward slash again, go outside, image, there is. So if I do this now, I'm sorry, is it going to show? No. So this is just to explain one important point, that if you're adding background image, if the container does not have a width and a height, the background image will not appear. If it doesn't have a width and height, it will not appear. Now, if you're using the image tag, there's a way you just calculate and give it the default image size that is inbuilt inside the picture. But for a background image, it's not like that. So I have to give it a width of 50%. I'll give it a height of 50 view height. So if I save this now, have our background image, but it's not showing the way I want it to show. Now, just to mention something, what if I want this image to move to the center? Well, we've not learned display properties like flex. We can use the margin. So say margin auto. Now, what does it do? This means since the width of this container is less than 100%, so that means it has extra 50% to do what? To the left, to spare. So this margin auto will just calculate or do the math for you to give it a margin left and a margin right so perfect that this container will be at the center. So that is this. Now, what if I now want to apply a margin top so that it will shift down a little, and maybe a margin bottom? Well, to do that, you must do it after the margin auto, and you must use this specific method. If you use this type, it then means it will spoil the work of the margin auto. So you say the margin top should be 1 REM, and the margin bottom should be 1 REM. And 1 REM is equivalent to about 16 pixels. 1 view height is equivalent to about 10 pixels. Now, before I end this class, I'm going to tell you some of the advantage of using all of this. So if I save, I'll have this. So you see, it's not even like this. Next, but the image is not showing. So why is it not showing? Because we need to give it more instructions. I have to say background size should be contained. So that is one. So let's see how it looks like. See? But if I make the width to be 100%, you notice something else again. You notice it is repeating. So how do we stop this repeating? Say background, repeat, no repeat. So you see it has stopped repeating. Now what if I now want it to go to the center? So you can say background position center, and that is it. So now at a glance, you see that you might not need to even give it the margin and padding. So I just wanted to use that opportunity to show you that. Now, how do we add a background image to our website? So that one is easy. So I want to look for another image again. So let me look for one that is clearer. Okay, let me go to my folders. web HTML, CSS, this, like this. Images. Let me look for this. So let me drag this jellyfish to my VS Code inside my images. So to do that, I just come here and add to my body tag background image URL dot and forward slash dot and forward slash dot and forward slash images, then jellyfish. So let's see now this image is going to show because by default the body tag have a width and height, so you don't need to set that. The next, how do we make it to look fine or to look good? So you have to avoid background repeat, no repeat, so it's going to stop that. So see how it looks like now. How do we make it to appear well? So background size cover, so say contains, just stay within, so stay here. So can this contain, so you see how it looks like now. Now you notice that if I scroll, in the background image does not scroll, it does not remain fixed, rather it disappears. So how do we do that? So say background attachment fixed, by default is on scroll, so it's now fixed. So as you scroll, now this is just a side point. If you're using a background image for your website, you just have to make sure that the text is still legible. So what if I want to change color? Should be white. Now I notice that not all of them are white. What if I want to force all of them to be white? So I'll now put this important. Okay, you can't force all of them to be white because this is not at the top, and this one has, it does not have a higher point, so this one will be same. Now the important is used when you want an external CSS to override the work of internal or external CSS, and it should be used sparingly. So that is for that. Next is the font family. So let's say we want to change the font family of a text. So I'm going to comment this out so that everything will look nice. So let's say we want to change the font family of all our p tags. So come here, say of my H1, H3 as a font family. So I can select any of this, and you see that the font family change. Let's select another one. Font. So let's see whether or not this. So you see, it's now visible. So what if you don't like this and you want to add your own custom font size that is not given to you? So let me connect my data so that I'll show you how to do that. But before it gets connected, let's now move on to, so now the last part now is the CSS positions. Let's just connect. It's taking time, I don't know why. Okay, so while it's loading, let me show you CSS position. Now CSS positions, okay, it's out. So that's, now let's say I want to download a font, so I would say Google fonts. So let me choose this one. So this is how to add a custom font. I'll show you. Two ways of adding this. So when it's finished loading, it's going to show you the type of font. Now I want to select a font that let me just for some fonts, some default fonts. So we have Battle, it's taking time to load. Okay, let's say I want to use this. I want to use this in Consolata for my paragraph. So I'll just tap it. Then what I will do now is I will click on Get Font. and I'll choose on. Now if I want to download it and save on my project, then I'll download it, but I'll show how to use the get template code. So this one I can add it within my link tag. So I'll just copy this. So this one will go inside my index HTML. So I'll add that here. New font family. So I'll paste. Then of course the name is this. Ctrl C. So if I want all my p tags now to have that font, so I'll go to my p tag, and I'll say font family code. I'll put this. Then just to be on the safe side, if you're using a custom font, it's good for you to have a backup. So I'll just choose one of these fonts, area, vertical, this, but I'll remove this one, and I'll now paste this one. So if this one is not available, then it will fall back to this and this. So if I save, let's see how it will look like. So you see, it has worked. This is, let's confirm. So let's see the instructions. Okay, so after you finish copying it, is this. So it's working. So, but one of the drawback of this is it's only when you have internet that this will work. So if you don't have internet, it don't work. Now you notice that if I check for another font now, it's like this. So get embed. Let's look for the name of this one is, yes, so I'll just copy this. So if I come here, you can add more than one font to your page. Then, oh, it's still the same. Okay, what it does is each time I click, it just adds it to the list. So that means I can comment this out, and the old one will still work. So let's check because it's already here. You see, it still works. The next,
I'll just copy the name of this one. I think it's protest. What is the name? Let's do that. Okay, it's protest. It's protest riots. So if I copy this, or just to be sure, come back here, we're going to see how to apply it. So it's protest riot like this. So if I just copy this line of code, see, come to my code, and I say this should be applied to all my H3. So you notice that all my H3 will have that. I see it now. So that's the protest riot. Let's make it more plain. Simple. Let's add it here. So you see, it worked. So this is how you can add font family. Now, the other method to use is for you to download it and add it. But that means you're increasing the size of your page. So it is best to just use a link, which is from a CDM. So it is more faster and it is lightweight. So this is how you can add fonts to your web page. The next, lastly, we are going to learn about CSS positions. So these are the following types of CSS positions. We have static, we have relative, we have absolute, we have fixed, and we have sticky. Now, all this while we have been using static. That means wherever you place a HTML tag, that is where it will appear on the browser. So the way you arrange it on your code, that's where it will appear on the browser. Then this relative, from this relative to this sticky, they all respond to width. So they respond to top, left, right, and bottom. Whereas this static does not respond to it. So this responds to it. So this type of position, it is like this static. Wherever you place a tag, that is where it will stay. But it can respond to top, left, right, and left. So that is one of the difference. Then the next is absolute. So now if you give a tag a position of absolute, it will immediately take the body tag as its reference. But what if you want to move that tag within its immediate parent, not the body tag, then it then means you have to give the parent a position of relative, then the child a position of absolute. Then when you say top, left, and right, it will not assume the body tag as its parent. Then fixed always assumes the body tag as its parent. So it does not respect, or it does not it does not concern itself if its immediate parent has a position of relative already or not. So it does not behave like absolute. Then sticky is a CSS position that fluctuates between relative and fixed. So at some point it is relative, then at some other point it is fixed. So it is usually applied when a user scrolls. So if a user starts to scroll at some point, if it reaches a threshold, it will now change from relative to fixed. Then from these CSS positions, from relative to sticky, you can apply a z-index. What is z-index? Z-index tells the browser how to stack CSS or stack HTML tags if they meet together. So that is just the theory for all this. Now let's begin the code. So I'll go back to my browser. So again, let's look at the browser. So let's say I want, okay, let's create new. Positions. So why is it not okay? Let's see. So if I have just say the tag boring, keep this one relative. So for this relative position, it will look like this. So if I go back to my CSS and I come here and say dot relative, and I say position relative, then I say left should be 30 pixels. That means it will move it will move 30 pixels to the what? To the right. If I move it to 60, you see move 60 pixels to the left. Let me take it again to 90. So you see it keeps shifting. But if I turn it to 5, see how it looks like. So that is it. It responds to width and height. Now if I want to move it to the top, I can say top minus 40 pixels. So this means I say that. So it just remains where it originally is, but it can respond to what? Width and height. So let me do that. Then so next have the absolute, then we have the child. So if I have this, let me give it some CSS styling. So I'll just copy this. I'll come here to dot absolute. So if I give the position, of absolute. Well, first of all, before I give it this position of absolute, let me style this out to be so I'll say width 50%, height should be 40 height. Then I'll say margin auto, then border 1 pixel solid red. Let's save. So see how it looks now. Then just to mention something, if you want a copy, and you can say border radius of 10, so of 10 pixels, so it just make it look like this. Then if you want a perfect circle, so let's use that this is 50. I put here 50%. So if I put here 50%, that means it's going to have something like this. So it's not a perfect square, so that's why it's not a perfect circle. Okay, then next I'll move to dot absolute space dot child. So almost the same thing that we have here, but I'm going to change this to 50 pixel and 50 pixel. So if I save this now, it's going to look like this. So why is it not showing? Okay, made this mistake again. Child. Okay, so this is how it looks like. Now, what if I want this child now? Now you notice that because I gave it the same width and height, so that this one is a perfect circle, whereas this one looks like an oval. So what if I want this guy to move down? Now notice what will happen if I just come here and give it a position of absolute, and I say bottom should be 5 pixel. So you just notice what will happen now. It has done that. So it has assumed that its parents is the block tag, and that is why it's like that. Then if I say top, let me change this to top. So you see, so top means it will count from the top, then the bottom it will count from here and not from here. So now what if I now wanted to take this reference not from the body tag but from this immediate parent, which is absolute? Then I have to argue this and you have the position of what? Relative. So it will not behave like that again. So it will not behave there. So I see it. So if I give this child now the position of top this and the right, of 50%, and notice any change. I see how it is. Top of 50%. See how it looks like. So if you just play around with this, you're going to see how it looks like. So I say my right should be 10 pixels. My top should be 5 pixels. So look at how to look like that. So this time, and because it's not a perfect square, that's why you're seeing that. But if I remove this border radius now, it's this. So you notice how it looks like. So that is for that. Then the next one is for the absolute. For the absolute, and for the fixed. So if I give this one fixed, I give this child, so what I will now do is this. Just copy this one. I want to make the same styling. Shift Alt arrow down. So I'll change this one to what? Fixed. I'll change this one to what? Fixed. So to have the same styling, way that I can change this one to medium. So you see it has the same styling. But now for the child now, let me now give it a position of fixed. What is that? It does not obey, it is not as obedient as this. So when you give it a position of fixed, even if this immediate parent has a position of relative, to still behave, it will still assume this parent as the body tag. So this is how it looks like. And one of the application of this, it's a top, that if the user clicks on the text, can go top. So you can add an contact here. And the reference is top. Let's say top. So in my last class I did this. So this is bookmarking. So I'll now give this an ID. Top. So if I'm here and I click here, see this will be the top. If I'm here and I click see, this will be the top. So you see it's working. So the nice way to put this is to use bottom. So if you're using left, you don't use right. If you're using right, you don't use left. If you're using top, then bottom. You must use either left or right, or top or bottom. So you see it's low number. If I click from down, I click here, so back to the top. So these are the use case. Then the next one now is our position relative. You say dot sticky, rather sticky, so static relative, not both. We fixed after the user scrolls the start of 5. Let's see. So let's see how this looks like. So let's see how this looks like. So let's put this guy here at the top. So, but this is usually done with our navbar. So let's use our navbar. I have our navbar here, right? So that is it. So let's use the navbar. It's more appropriate. So say now so use the background color and black. So if we do that, here looks like. Then the padding of 0.5, 0.5 here. Then of course we want the navigation. So now the color white. So you see how it looks like now. So we want after a user scrolls to a certain point, this nav should remain fixed. So then we can move this guy here X top. But it's not compulsory. But let's leave it first. There are so many use cases on it, as you can see when you visit W3 School. So I'll give this a position of what? Of sticky. Then I'll say top. $15 pixels. So let me use button. So this is top. So the top is the right one. So top. So if I give it top of 5 pixels, see how it looks like. But when I scroll up to that 5 pixels, it becomes fixed. So the thing I wanted to show you is if I place something here, So I still remember this example from the previous school. If I place something before my nav bar, something like this now. So I'll be relative. So after I scroll that distance, you see, I want this guy to hide, but I don't want my nav bar to hide. So you see, so I can now come here and make this be 1. So you see, it looks like this, but after the user scrolls up to that point, it will make the same. I don't want to, I can make it 0. So you see, we have it, but after this, it makes the same. Okay, so now we'll now move to the last one, which is Z index. Now let me do the example for that one. The markup for that one. So we have dot Z index. So inside here I have the box 1, so box 2, box 3. So I have 2 and 3. So the Z index is used to tell CSS how a tag will stack on top of another if they clash or if they meet together. So let me first of all do the styling for this. Then we'll see how we can apply our Z index. And like I explained earlier, Z index usually moves with the position. So a tag must have at least a Z index of relative before you can a position of relative before you can apply Z index. So Z index. So I have dot Z index, which I have the border of 1 pixel, solid, green. Imagine is the top and bottom should be 1 RPM. Then let's give this a width first of 50. Let's give it 70 pixel, 70% rather. Then I want to give this a margin of say 1 RPM.
Which one movement is here?
Auto. Okay. So let's put that height. Looks like okay, it doesn't have a height. So let's give it a height of 50.
That demands
Of 50 pixel. So that we have this height. So let me create the other ones. So dot Z index, I have my dot box 1, dot box 2, dot box 3. Remember this is the list selector, so select all of them. So I have a width of 20 pixel and a height of 20 pixel, all of them. And what I will now do next is dot box 1, say background color of the red. So I'll copy this, dot arrow down.
2 of purple, this of gold. So if we do this one is stupid, so let's use box 3. So if we do this, notice that I have these 3 boxes. So box 1, box 2, box 3. Okay. Let's see. So to be more specific, I put .z index is so that there will be no conflict. Okay. Next, we add a CSS position of absolute with this. Here's our then the index is to have a position of relative. Yes. So next, we want to give it a position of top, then pixel, the right, we want to use 30%. Let's see how it looks like. So see how it looks like. So let's copy the same thing, Ctrl C, paste here, then give this one 20 pixel and 20%. Let's see how it looks like. So see how it looks like. With one of my boxes, I'm not sure. Maybe the markup. I have 3 boxes. Box 1, box 2, box 3. My people select. This is box 3. So this is it now. So next one. So I'll move this one to 10% or 5. So if I do this, I'll have this. Now, if I give all of them the same, same position. You notice that it is yellow that is showing, or it is the gold that is showing, but we know that they are all inside here. So what if I want the purple to show? So I'm saying Z index should be 1, and because the red does not have a Z index, it is the purple that will show. Now, if I want the red to show, I'm saying Z index, because I know that there's a Z index of 1, I'll do this one of what? 2. So it's the one that will show. Now, if I want the blue to show, I'll say the Z index of what? Of 3. So you see. Now let's begin to space them a little. So
let me make this one 11, 12, 13. Not much of a difference. Then we make this one 5, 10, 15. So see how it looks like now. So depending on the Z index, that will determine the one that will be on top. So because this gold has a Z index of 3, that is why it's on top. If I want the red to come on top, because I'll just change the Z index. So this one has a Z index of 3. So if I want the red to come on top, I will give this one a Z index of 4. So the one that has the highest index. So this is CSS positions. Now, before this, or in my next class, I'm going to explain some of the responsive or some of the CSS units that encourages responsiveness or that make a responsiveness very difficult in our subsequent video. And also in our subsequent video, I'm going to show us various ways of adding CSS colors. Please feel free to read ahead of the class by using Prerequisites or videos. Thank you very much and see you in the next.